going to be a lot cheaper in Michigan than it is in California. Well, good morning. Today is Thursday, the 9th, and we are packing up to head toward Arizona and then on to California. And right now I'm going to go out and get a few supplies, fill up a propane bottle, and top off the truck diesel, and get my wife some Dramamine since we're going to be on a ferry tomorrow. We're going to cross Lake Michigan in a ferry, so she gets motion sickness pretty easily, so we're going to get some Dramamine for her. It was raining last night. I like that it rains, but I think I've had my fill of it for a while. When we came out here, you know, we came from Arizona where it's dry weather and it never rains, and we had a really good attitude about it when it rained, but yeah, now I'm ready for some dry ground. I've spent 10 months here, and I don't think I've ever seen the ground dry more than a couple of days in the whole 10 months. It is wet all the time, and so it's muddy all the time, and yeah, it's always tracking that in and out of the camper. Sometimes it's nice to go to an RV park where it's all paved over just to not walk in the mud. So looking forward to getting on the road. We've been really wanting to get back to where we can be remote, so I've been trying to get back to doing remote work, and so far not been successful at it. You know, I'm an engineer, an electrical engineer, and the nature of my career, it's one where there's a laboratory, managers, you know, a lot of companies that develop products that are electronic. There's a lot of money and capital invested in that, and to have the individual who's designing your circuitry, your circuit boards, to not be right there in the company where the management can have access to them, the marketing group can talk to them, the manufacturing group can talk to them. It doesn't lend itself to be mobile very easily, and that's not to say it can't be done. I actually did it for 6 or 7 years, but it was a small assortment of companies that worked for them. Most companies that are high-tech companies that I go to work for, they have the traditional engineering center, maybe a manufacturing center, prototyping area, a development lab, and those are all in-house, and so the engineer sits not far from the lab, and that's where I was at GE. While I was here at Michigan, I worked at GE Aviation, and that's the way it was. My cubicle in the cubicle farm was just a few feet from the lab, so that sensor, that beeping you're hearing, is my LP tank. I have one of those Bluetooth sensors that you attach to the bottom of the tank, and that bottle is low, and so it's alerting me. Oh, your gas is low. Yeah, that's what I'm going to get it filled. Anyway, so you might hear it beep every now and then, because it's giving me an alert that the tank, the fluid level is low, especially with it sloshing around back in there. So anyway, I'd like to get back to remote work. Part of this way it works is if I can get work that will allow me to do the lab be mobile, So not just a design workstation to be mobile, but the laboratory to be mobile. That was the idea of the mid-bunk RV, was to turn the mid-bunk into a lab. Because before, when I was mobile, we were mobile for about a year. I didn't have a lab with me, and so anytime I had to do any debug on a new design or existing design, I had to travel back to Chandler, Arizona, where I have an office and a lab there. And so it kind of hinged me to Chandler a little more than I wanted. So by doing it this route, putting the lab in the trailer, in the RV, it allowed me to hopefully get work where I can do the design and development from anywhere in the country and be completely remote. And it can be done, but convincing a lot of the tech companies that are out there that the engineering team does not necessarily have to sit right in there with them. That's a hard sell with a lot of them that are still they're used to the traditional engineering team right next to the software development team, right next to the manufacturing floor, right next to the management team, and so on. And I understand that. That's understandable. That's understandable. However, you know, me, I'm choosing where I go to work based upon the location, and so I think that you can, if you're a company that's doing hardware design or some type of high-tech design, and you may not be located where you can get the best talent, and I think allowing people to work from remote and maybe traveling back and forth periodically might be a better solution to get the type of engineers and experience you need. I'm really looking forward to getting this thing into a drier climate. I mean, I'm not used to as much moisture as Michigan gets, and I'm sure moisture just works its way into places that you wouldn't imagine in this very wet climate. Only about half the days of the year are sunny here in Michigan. I think it's 160 days a year that are sunny. That means the rest are cloudy. So really looking forward to getting this thing into a drier climate so it can dry out. Since we're going to be on the road for a good week, we're obviously not going to be connected to shore power, and so I had to either decide for a generator or to go after a solar panel. And eventually I want to do a full solar install with a large 3,000 watt inverter and auto transfer switch, but that's for down the road. Just for this trip, however, I need to determine whether I'm either going to have a generator for when I'm sitting still, or can I just use a small panel. So what I decided to do is buy, just for now, just one HQST. I think this is an HQST panel. The brand. Yeah, it's an HQST, and just hook it up as a standalone charger. And I'm just using the ZAMP connector that the RV came with. Now, since this here is a ZAMP connector, and ZAMP wires theirs up a little differently, wired up actually backwards than most of the aftermarket solar charge controllers. So you need to use this little adapter here. Actually, I could have just reversed this wiring here and eliminated the adapter, but so that I could use this charge controller and panel with other RVs, I wired it up the way it's supposed to be, and then just use the adapter, and it plugs in, and this just connects directly up to the battery terminal itself. There's no charge controller back behind here, so it's just direct to the battery. So it would be better if we do it this way.
Okay, it's already on.
Yeah, okay. So we've got a little bit of a shade here. I can see the shadow here, but connecting these up is really simple. Since my RV came solar, what's called solar ready. Now this did not come with an internal solar charger like some RVs do. This one, literally all it was a ZAMP connector connected directly to the battery. So this is just going right to that ZAMP connector, and it's connected to the battery portion of this charge controller. And then the solar panel is connected to the solar panel connections here. There's also a load connection here. Ideally, you would connect all your load up here, the battery here. So in this situation, and I've got it currently set up, it is charging the battery while there is a load on it, marginal load. It should charge just fine. This type of charger shouldn't have too much problem with it, even though you're having a little additional load on top of the fact that you're trying to charge the battery. All right, so just for this road, we're doing this temporarily, try to use it right out of the box. Eventually I'll make a little PVC stand for it. But yeah, I think this will work for now. So one idea is if we're parked somewhere, like at okay, so another reason I need to do this is our RV is equipped with a residential fridge, not a propane electric. The residential does use a bit more power, and we only have one lead acid battery. And so that single lead acid battery is supplying the needs for a single residential fridge inside the RV, as well as a small, what do you call, a dorm style fridge in the outdoor kitchen. So it's got to supply power for 2 refrigerators while we're parked. If we're going to go to like Mount Rushmore, and so this is going to be parked for a little while. I could sit, it could probably run just fine on the batteries, the connection between the 2 batteries in the truck and then the battery in the RV. But if I could just set the solar panel out and just point it in the sky, get some sunlight, it would probably do a little bit better that way, where it's able to contribute some energy to the battery system while it's just sitting and drawing energy to keep those refrigerators running. So I don't want to do a generator.
And we don't want to buy more batteries.
Yeah, and I don't want to buy more batteries right now. So, because eventually I'm going to do a whole lithium conversion to this thing. So yeah. The single lead acid, it's a flooded lead acid battery, came with from the factory. That's just going to stay that way until we do a more professional style solar lithium 3,000 watt inverter automatic transfer switch type setup. So we're just going to test this and see if it can just sit in the back of the truck whenever we're parked somewhere. Like this. And that would be perfect. The idea here is that it just points at the sky, hopefully catches a little sun, and keeps our batteries topped off while we're sitting somewhere for a long period of time, for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. We're going to be on a ferry next week, and that ferry is a 4-hour ride. Unfortunately, I'm not certain where they're going to put this, but I think it goes down below. So
the vehicles,
that's going to be a challenge, because I don't want to turn the fridge off for 4 hours. And I may not even be able to have the truck connected to the RV. They've asked me if I'd minded disconnecting it. And I'm like, okay. But it only has a single, like I said, a single lead acid battery. So I'm going to do some tests to see how well that battery holds up, just unplugging it from shore power here, just turning the breaker off, and seeing how well that battery holds up, supplying energy to my 2 residential refrigerators to see if it can hold up to 4 hours in the belly of that ferry while we cross Lake Michigan. So that's going to be the biggest challenge. I think everywhere else we're planning to go, where we would park the truck and trailer and leave for a few hours, it's going to be outside, where I could just hook up the solar and plug it into my ZAMP connector, and that should take care of it in those situations. So I'm just going to pull the truck forward a little bit. Yep, it's towing good. Got some bugs on it. Rolling down the highway good. Well, here we are at our first rest area on our trip back to, well, we're headed to Arizona first and then to California. But I think we're gonna stay the night here in this rest area, unless there's any signs that say no overnight. First few miles towing it. This is the first real haul with it. So, and it's all the gears working pretty good. Excited about, it sits pretty well. You can see there it's sitting pretty well. I wonder if I could adjust it there's an adjustment on my hitch. I can maybe set it maybe a couple inches, a little lower, try to get just a little bit more level. But it's towing wonderful. No bucking or no swaying, no, just smooth as can be. Truck's getting around 12.2. We've been pulling some hills, small hills, getting around 12.2 miles per gallon. I bet when we hit the straightaways in the plains, I bet that gets up to around 13 miles per gallon. So I'm kind of excited to see what it looks like when we get in the bigger states out west.